The tropics are heating up as we approach the climatological peak of hurricane season. That is September 10th, and all eyes are on what is going to be Major Hurricane Lee. As of the 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Central Time advisory on the 7th for Hurricane Lee, this has been rapidly intensifying. 105-mile-per-hour winds. That is up, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, 25 miles per hour from the previous advisory. And this is just an absolute monster of a storm already and is continuing to intensify. You can actually clearly see the eye just really emerge over the last couple of hours of this satellite loop. And Hurricane Lee is explicitly forecast by the National Hurricane Center become the season's first Category 5 storm by Friday, 7 p.m. Central Time. 160-mile-per-hour winds. So over the course of less than 48 hours, Hurricane Lee goes from Cat 1 to Cat 5 strength. Now, of course, everyone wants to know what's going to happen with Hurricane Lee as we move past this weekend. Well, thankfully, the model consensus is that this system stays far enough to the north of Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles that the outer fringes of the system, the outer feeder bands with some heavier rain, some gusty squally winds and high surf, that's really what's going to be felt across the island chain. But still, by Tuesday, 7 a.m., 140-mile-per-hour major hurricane looks like it's pointed directly towards the United States and the Bahamas, but Hurricane Lee is expected to make a turn to the north. The big question mark is when. And notice that most of our forecast models through Tuesday, September 12th, are very close to that purple line, which is the center line for the National Hurricane Center's latest forecast. The question mark becomes, when does it take a turn to the north? Because that will indicate to us how far to the west it could go. And the farther west, of course, the better the chances to impact the United States. 100% though, this is a storm that the tiny island of Bermuda needs to keep a very keen eye on. Could potentially see a major hurricane passing very close by the middle of next week. Sea surface temperatures are exceptionally warm all the way up to, here is Bermuda right here. But once you get north of Bermuda, the hurricanes that moved through a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about Idalia and also Franklin, kind of zap some of the energy away from the surface warmth. So there is eventually going to be a weakening with this system once it makes that turn to the north and enters those cooler waters. But right now, this system is just in the absolute perfect position for rapid intensification. Usually you need 80-degree sea surface temperatures, like I just showed you, for those tropical storms and hurricanes to form. But 85-degree plus sea surface temperatures are around for the entirety of Lee's path to the northwest over the next 5 days. Now, the big question mark, like I mentioned, when is this going to take a turn towards the north? And it depends on where this ridge of high pressure is going to be. By the time we reach the middle of next week, Lee is expected to round the bend of that ridge of high pressure. But look at how far to the north it starts to move. The farther north that it goes, the more likely it's going to be that Lee gets trapped between the ridge of high pressure and that cold front to the west. If it can't move to the east, it's just going to continue to move north. So New England, parts of Nova Scotia, definitely needs to keep a keen eye on this system. We still don't know exactly where it's going to go yet, but the impacts to the United States and Canada, if they were to happen, wouldn't happen until the end of next week. We also have Tropical Depression 14 out there just to the west of the Cabo Verde Islands, expected to become the season's next hurricane by Sunday. This one, though, thankfully likely going to be a fish storm.